The story behind the Great War. World War I did not begin because of a single event or one sudden decision. Instead, it was the result of decades of growing tension, fear, ambition, and rivalry among Europe's great powers. By 1914, Europe was like a room filled with gas, dangerously unstable, and one small spark was enough to cause an explosion. That spark came in the summer of 1914, but the gas had been building up for years. To understand why World War I happened, we must look beyond the assassination that triggered it and explore the deeper forces that shaped Europe in the late 19th and early 20th centuries: nationalism, imperialism, militarism, alliance systems, and political instability. Together, these forces created a situation where war was not only possible, but increasingly likely. Europe before the war, a continent on edge. In the decades before World War I, Europe appeared powerful and confident. Industrialization had transformed economies, cities were growing, and empires stretched across the globe. However, beneath this appearance of stability lay deep tensions. Europe was dominated by a few major powers: Britain, France, Germany, Austria-Hungary, Russia, and the Ottoman Empire. These nations competed fiercely for land, influence, and prestige. Each feared losing power to the others, and each believed it had to be strong, militarily and politically, to survive. The balance of power that had kept peace in Europe for much of the 19th century was beginning to crack. Nationalism, pride, identity, and conflict. One of the most powerful forces leading to World War I was nationalism. Nationalism is the belief that people who share a language, culture, and history should form their own nation and govern themselves. While nationalism helped unify countries like Germany and Italy in the 19th century, it also caused serious problems. Nationalism in the Balkans. Nowhere was nationalism more dangerous than in the Balkans, a region in southeastern Europe. The Balkans were home to many ethnic groups: Serbs, Croats, Bosnians, Bulgarians, and others, who wanted independence or greater power. The Ottoman Empire, which had once controlled much of the Balkans, was weakening. As it declined, new nations emerged, but borders were unclear and disputed. Serbia, in particular, wanted to unite all Slavic peoples in the region into one nation. This ambition brought Serbia into direct conflict with Austria-Hungary, which ruled over many Slavic peoples and feared losing control of its empire. Nationalism also affected larger nations. France, for example, had never forgiven Germany for taking the regions of Alsace and Lorraine after the Franco-Prussian War of 1870–71. Many French citizens longed for revenge and the return of these territories. Imperialism, competition for global power. Another major cause of World War I was imperialism, the practice of building empires by controlling territories overseas. European nations competed intensely for colonies in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. Colonies provided raw materials, new markets, and national prestige. This competition increased tensions between the great powers, especially between Germany, Britain, and France. Germany, a relatively new nation unified in 1871, wanted its place in the sun, and believed it deserved an empire equal to those of Britain and France. However, most of the world had already been claimed. As Germany pushed for more influence, Britain and France grew suspicious and defensive. Imperial rivalries did not directly cause the war, but they deepened mistrust and hostility, making cooperation between nations more difficult. Militarism, the glorification of military power. In the years before World War I, European nations increasingly embraced militarism, the belief that military strength was the key to national success and security. Governments invested heavily in armies and navies, and military leaders gained significant influence over political decisions. The arms race. Germany and Britain became locked in a naval arms race, competing to build the most powerful battleships. Britain, an island nation, depended on its navy for defense and trade, while Germany wanted a fleet strong enough to challenge British dominance. On land, countries expanded their armies and developed detailed war plans. Germany created the Schlieffen Plan, which outlined a rapid attack on France through Belgium if war broke out. France developed its own strategies, while Russia expanded its massive but poorly equipped army. As weapons became more advanced and armies grew larger, war became more destructive, and more likely. Many leaders believed that if war came, it would be better to strike first rather than wait and risk defeat. Alliances, a dangerous web of promises. By the early 20th century, Europe was divided into two major alliance systems. The Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. The Triple Entente, Britain, France, and Russia. These alliances were meant to provide security, but they had the opposite effect. Instead of preventing war, they turned local conflicts into international crises. Each country promised to defend its allies if they were attacked. This meant that a dispute between two nations could quickly involve many others. Diplomatic flexibility disappeared, and leaders felt trapped by their commitments. When tensions rose, there was little room for compromise. The Ottoman Empire and regional instability. The Ottoman Empire, often called the sick man of Europe, was collapsing. As it lost territory, other powers rushed to fill the void. Russia wanted access to warm water ports, Austria-Hungary wanted influence in the Balkans, and Britain wanted to protect routes to India. This struggle over Ottoman lands further destabilized southeastern Europe and contributed to the growing rivalry among the great powers. The spark, the assassination at Sarajevo. On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary, was assassinated in the city of Sarajevo by Gavrilo Princip, a Bosnian Serb nationalist. The assassination itself was shocking, but it was not enough on its own to cause a world war. However, it triggered a chain reaction among nations already primed for conflict. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia for the assassination, believing that Serbian nationalist groups were behind the attack. With Germany's full support, known as the blank check, Austria-Hungary issued an ultimatum to Serbia with extremely harsh demands. Serbia accepted most of the demands but rejected those that threatened its sovereignty. Austria-Hungary responded by declaring war on Serbia on July 28, 1914. From local conflict to world war. Once Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, the alliance system took over. Russia, protecting Serbia and Slavic nationalism, mobilized its army. Germany, allied with Austria-Hungary, declared war on Russia. Germany then declared war on France, Russia's ally. Germany invaded Belgium to carry out the Schlieffen Plan. Britain, bound by treaty to protect Belgian neutrality, declared war on Germany. Within weeks, nearly all of Europe was at war. What began as a regional dispute in the Balkans had become a global conflict. Why diplomacy failed? Many historians argue that World War I could have been avoided if diplomacy had succeeded. However, several factors made peaceful resolution difficult. Leaders believed war was inevitable and even necessary. Military timetables forced rapid decisions. National pride made compromise seem like weakness. Communication between governments was slow and unreliable. No single leader planned a world war, but each decision, made under pressure, pushed Europe closer to disaster. Conclusion: a war caused by many forces. World War I happened not because of one reason, but because of a combination of powerful forces that built up over time. Nationalism created rivalries and hatred, imperialism increased competition, militarism glorified war, alliances spread conflict, and political instability made peace fragile. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand was merely the final spark. The true causes lay in the structure of European politics and society itself. By 1914, Europe was a continent armed to the teeth, divided by fear and ambition, and convinced that war was both unavoidable and honorable. When the moment came, the world stepped into a conflict unlike any it had ever seen, a war that would reshape borders, destroy empires, and change history forever.